What's up, everyone? Episode number 12 of the Foreign Exchange Podcast. I'm back with Tamiem. I'm back with Aaron. And today we have, in no simple terms, a juggernaut, a Texas law juggernaut joining us. So we have Dan Cogdell joining us. Dan, thanks for being here.
I don't know what juggernaut means, but thank you.
Yeah. Well, I think they should probably define the word by saying you know, kind of a meaning. But just a quick intro on Dan. Dan has been part of a lot of prominent cases. Some of those include when Dan represented Ken Paxton when he fought against Enron. Today he is actively fighting another very prominent case here in the North Dallas area. So we have him here. We're going to talk about kind of, this particular case that he's handling, but at the same time also maybe get to kind of learn from you, behind the scenes of kind of what's going on. And also would love to, kind of, when we looked up your videos online, it was all, in a courtroom setting. Would love to know kind of who you are and just kind of have a conversation with you.
Well, in a word, in a courtroom setting, I'm underpaid. I think that's the best way to describe it.
Yeah. So
according to the comment section of some of these videos, Dan, the reason you're even taking on the case with that big is because they must be. Top comment here is like, this lawyer is getting paid a ton of money to take this case.
Well, I hope so. I got stuff to pay for.
There you go. Yeah. There you go. So again, absolute pleasure and an honor to have Dan on, a legend in the game. Dan, can you give us a little background story of kind of who you are and what even led you to pursuing law and becoming an attorney like you are?
Well, yeah, sure. I'm West Side of Houston kid, middle class kid. My dad worked for Texaco. I went to the University of Texas where I had a really good time. Of course, back then to get into UT, if you could get a fishing license, you could probably much get into UT. If you had a pulse, you could get in. It's a little harder now. And I had a smoking hot 2.4, and I decided that I didn't want to go to work for Procter & Gamble, which was my only job offer. I didn't want to stack dial soap at the local, Tom Thumb. So I decided to go to law school, and here we are.
Was it 2.4?
2.4.
Wow. I guess, that goes to
Don't
show
let anybody in law
GPA
school.
doesn't mean anything, right? It's look at where you are now.
Well, to be fair, I only got into two law schools. One was Texas Tech in Lubbock, and it was 1979. And I flew into Lubbock in 1979 on a Friday night at 10 o'clock, and I thought the plane was crashing because there was no lights when we were landing. I thought, I can't do 3 years here. So I went to South Texas, which is now a pretty good law school, which was then middle of the road at best. But in a serious note, the only reason I went to law school was to work for my mentor, legendary figure named Richard Racehorse Haynes. Only in Texas do you have a guy named Racehorse Haynes. Haynes was, in his era, by far the best criminal defense lawyer in the country, in my view, and I was lucky enough. I did graduate number one in my class in law school and was lucky enough to work for Mr. Haynes, and it was the best education a young lawyer can ever get, for sure.
Yeah, and it goes to show you how far a mentor can get you in life. And, Dan, you mentioned you went to UT Hookham. Are you a sportsman at all? Did you participate or appreciate, or do you follow? I know the team is pretty good this past year, but...
I'm a huge UT fan when they're winning. It's a lot to get to the games in and out, and I have some well-moneyed friends that have nice suites, and so when I'm lucky enough to get invited to a nice suite, I'll go. Otherwise, I scream at the coach from my couch.
That's awesome, man. So
how do we get Dan to, fight back against the Mavs organization, Dan? You hear about this news that's going on here in Dallas?
No. What's going on?
With them trading Luka Doncic?
I did. I didn't understand that. I'm not a basketball guy, but I didn't understand that.
Yeah, so it's essentially, it's the star franchise player of the Dallas Mavericks. Then they just kind of traded him away for peanuts, basically.
To the Lakers?
To the Lakers.
And what happened last night?
He came to town and totally... took us...
Obliterated.
Is that right?
He came to town and totally
It was his first
took
game
over.
back after he got traded.
Sorry to pick a scab.
No,
Sorry
I know.
about that.
It's
Yeah,
fresh for me. Our fan base knows how much I just totally strongly dislike the ownership group who owns the Mavs now, Texas Sands Group, because I believe it's fishy that they came in and totally ripped apart the heart of the franchise for their own, interests, which is a separate conversation to have. But I'm a former basketball player myself, played in college. I think I bring it up every episode to remind the fans.
You did it in your introduction to me.
Yeah, it is so deep rooted, and maybe there's some about it that I have some trauma with it too. But on a serious note, like Luka and the Mavs were a huge part of the culture here in Dallas, and taking him out and pretty much gutting the team is a topic of conversation we had. So we want to kind of tease you and see if you're a basketball guy by any means. Any Texans or Astros or Rockets?
No, I stay so busy with my practice that I really don't have time for a lot of sports. And to be fair, I used to say I don't watch Sunday football. Well, Saturday football is now Sunday football.
Totally.
I mean, it's the same thing.
Yep.
And I don't like how that's sort of degenerated. The purity of the sport's gone, blah, blah, blah. But we did get Arch Manning, so here we go.
Who's a legend.
Right.
Hopefully, fingers crossed, a future Cowboy. So let's get into that. Yeah, you're a busy guy, obviously, Dan. And Epic, which is the East Plano Islamic Center here, in North Dallas, has brought you on as an attorney to represent them on their behalf for developing this community that they're trying to build out in Josephine. So talk to us about kind of what you knew about it prior and what led you to accepting and representing this specific case.
Well, what I knew about it prior was nothing. I mean, I had no idea, and as I literally told the mosque last Thursday night after a prayer session, and the crowd got silent when I tried to explain this, but bear with me. I said, listen, I don't want you to take this the wrong way, but to get a guy who is whiter than me in skin pigment, you'd probably have to go to a Ku Klux Klan rally.
You got no chuckles? I would have been
and they're
laughing.
just like, oh my God, where is he going with this?
Who's the other option?
and I said, but even a guy, I don't know anything about your faith, your religion, your commitment, what you've gone through, but even a guy as white as me can figure out that what Abbott is saying and doing is wrong. And at the end of the day, the reason I became a criminal defense lawyer is I don't like bullies. And that's exactly what Abbott's trying to do. He's trying to bully these people for his political gain. I won't back down from that. I've been heavily criticized for calling him a liar. He is a liar. The statements he's making are endangering not only the development of this community, but the lives of the people that attend the church. My life is getting threatened. My wife's life is getting threatened. He needs to back down. I mean, if they've done a crime, they should be punished. To my knowledge, they've committed no crime. We're an open book. I will tell him. I will tell my friend Ken Paxson. I will tell whomever. You want to see our papers? Come look at them. You want to interview our people? Come out there. You want to go to the property? I'll take you out there. But the idea that they say that they're going to invoke Sharia law, the only person that's brought up Sharia law is Governor Abbott. The idea that, it's going to be a no-go zone, the only person that's promulgated that idea is Abbott, and on and on and on. And I don't get it. I have no idea why he's chosen that path, but I ain't backing down.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very local news story that's gained a lot of national traction, and there's renderings of the city, and there's a lot of prominent conservative Twitter and social media accounts that are sharing these renderings and stoking that narrative of, hey, this is they're coming in, they're taking over, they're going to implement Sharia law. Is this the first time you've dealt with this? Like you said, your family's being kind of hassled, and is this the first time in terms of a case you've represented that you've seen this kind of animosity so early on? Because I mean, how long has it been since you started representing this?
About 10 days.
So it's only been 10 days, and you're already getting this kind of like pushback and animosity. So have you experienced anything like this before?
Not like this early on, Aaron. I mean, I've been spat on. I've had cars swerve out of their way to act like they're going to hit me. I've been cursed. That's what you get as a criminal defense lawyer. If you become a criminal defense lawyer to make friends, you chose the wrong gig. But the level of animosity that I've seen in this case, I wasn't prepared for it. And it's ignorance. That's all it is ignorance. And I don't understand the level of hate. I get the whole, if you're Arab, if you're Muslim, you're a terrorist. I get that, but it's unbelievable the amount of vitriol and keyboard warrior nonsense that I'm seeing in this case. It's like, do you people not have day jobs? I mean, what in God's name is going on? The funny part to me is, let's assume that you hate Islamics. Let's assume that you hate Muslims. hey, they want to build a community out in the middle of nowhere. What a great idea.
When they told me Josephine, I was like, I have no idea where that is.
Well, this is funny, Dan, because our first clip that really got viral locally is one that we talk about the demographic change of North Dallas, specifically Salina, Frisco area, where in most recent past, there's been a huge influx of Indian Americans that have come, right? And Tamiem here, had a conversation with a faculty member in Salina where they mentioned that in the next few years, Salina will be 60% Indian. And him and I were born and raised in North Dallas. And so for us, even that statistic kind of blows our mind because Salina is like farm town, kind of country folk. And we're very familiar with like the people who live there. And, it brings up this conversation of, okay, well, on one side you have a full kind of takeover of a potential city, potential full takeover, right? On the other side, there's Muslims who are already in the community who want to create a community outside an undeveloped land. So it's like you can't win on any side of the argument. So I thought that was a very interesting thing.
Well, the idea, we got to stop these people from coming here. They're here. They're 1/3 of the world's population. They're 300,000 in DFW, so it's a little late, Gladys.
I mean, first it was, we got to stop letting them come here illegally.
Right.
Then just don't bring them here anyway. But, one of the conversations we had as a follow-up to that particular clip that ended up going viral here locally, we got a lot of comments, and you can kind of expect what those comments would look like. So, we had a discourse here between the three of us, and, we were kind of talking, is this a good thing? Is this a bad thing? At what point is it, somebody who is coming into an environment like this, like what responsibility do they have to assimilate and to kind of fit in, and how much flexibility and freedom do they get in terms of also being able to experience their culture?
Right.
And I think this particular, on this particular topic of Epic, we see that against the Islamic community, but I think that exists for any outsider. Even when we talked about Indians, right? Predominantly, I would say 90% of the comments we got was in some context negative. And there were a few people in the comment section kind of fighting back and forth about this, but why do you think that is? Like, why do you think, is it just a Texan thing? Is it just like kind of the recent political climate?
I've been in Texas since Dirt was young, so I've been here, effectively all my life. And Texas has been colloquial forever. Still is. And even if you get to the major metropolitan areas, I mean, you don't have to go very far to get to Red Oak or Waxahachie or wherever, and time has kind of stood still in those areas. I think it's fear of the unknown. I just think it's nothing more or less than that. And it's hard to educate people who don't want to be educated, right? It just is. What I didn't appreciate, just as a side note, is I didn't realize that a really faithful Muslim will sometimes pray 5 times a day, right? I had no clue. Well, if you're going to pray 5 times a day, you probably want to live near a mosque. I mean, that's not real.
Yeah,
makes sense.
Yeah.
Splitting an atom here.
And also, there's mosques everywhere in DFW.
Yeah.
So for this mosque is a huge concern right now on social media. But there's literally mosques everywhere. So I guess maybe comment on that. Also, I'm kind of curious about I want to ask you a couple of questions it's a topic of discussion online, which is Greg Abbott basically, suggesting that they're going to abide by a different set of rules. They're going to go by Sharia law instead of the American law. How difficult is it to battle truth or to shed truth when you have somebody like Greg Abbott, who's considered one of the more powerful people in Texas, like just putting out misinformation?
It's terribly difficult. And you guys know this better than I do because you're in the business. But if you don't have a forum, if you don't have a platform to advocate from, you got nothing. I mean, I was supposed to be on Glenn Beck's show this morning, and 2 minutes before they were supposed to have me on to talk about these various, are going to have Sharia law, they're going to have a no-go zone. They shut me off with no explanation other than, we want to talk to the developer. Well,
wow.
Let me know. I would bring the developer on. But Beck doesn't like people to talk back. Beck, in my view, is has a very effective bully pulpit. So good for him. He doesn't have to let me on his show. But to your
think
point,
that's like a form of censorship, that you're battling?
No, I mean it's a free country. He can have me on or not.
Yeah.
But more importantly, from my perspective, it's the First Amendment for a reason. It's the
and it's the First Amendment is what Texans love. I mean,
as long as it's their truth that's getting spoken, not the other guy's truth that's getting spoken.
Yeah.
And again, I'm whiter than your shirt, right? I am not assimilated culturally or religiously at all, and I don't pretend to be, but they just don't understand that by and large, the people at Epic are family oriented. They're law abiding. They're highly educated. I mean, the bell curve of their education is way higher. I mean, it's probably as good as Highland Park or anything else. I mean, these are very highly minimum BBA. Many people have PhDs. Many people have law degrees, whatever. These are smart, educated people. Their kids are going to SMU. Their kids are going to TCU. Their kids are going to UT, Stanford, Harvard, whatever. These aren't a bunch of Billy Bobs that are living in a double wide. These people have it going on. And the idea that they're now all of a sudden evil or the bad guys because they want to have a mosque in a community where they can live in that they can go to. I mean, God forbid. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, this resonates totally with us. I mean, as a Muslim myself who grew up, born and raised in Plano, whose family members, my own, family members are top trauma surgeons in Dallas, are other doctors, other lawyers, engineers, who, if you take them just on their face for what they do and what they contribute, the amount of taxes they pay, the amount of contributions they make, again, puts them in a different bracket altogether. And to just completely throw this blanket narrative that we all cut from this cloth of like extremists and we want to take over and add these, lifestyle that's going to totally ruin everything that's currently here is super unfortunate. And Greg Abbott, who we've discussed several times on this podcast, who we'd love to have on, Greg. I mean, we'd love to bring you in here and have a conversation, has been contributing to this misinformation, like Tamiem mentioned. And up here I have kind of something that he's tweeted recently in terms of how the group behind Epic Compound may be misleading investors, defrauding Texans. Texas State Security Board is conducting a thorough investigations. All entities in Texas must follow state law, not Sharia law. So just
this is crazy to me. So how, like, the governor of Texas is basically, I mean, I don't know. I'll let you.
But before I even pass it off to you, Dan, I think the language in this tweet alone tells you a lot, right?
It's completely incendiary. I mean, the defrauding Texans will not be tolerated. They're not defrauding Texans, right? Sharia law will not be tolerated. They're not going to. It's like,
How is that allowed? Is that like legal to? I mean, I guess it's the free speech, but
it's free speech, and in order to you're never going to sue an elected official. He's got governmental immunity, so effectively he can say what he wants without any real legal repercussions. But it's beyond that. I mean, he has a moral obligation to speak the truth, right?
Yeah.
He's our highest elected official.
Yeah.
And maybe his minions have told him these things. I don't know. If they have, they need to be fired. But for him just to go out and throw these blanket assertions, and some local radio dude was, you can't call him a liar. I said, well, those are lies. What do you call a person who tells lies? Well, you can't show that he knew that they were false. They are false. There's nothing truthful about those statements.
Yeah.
And so he's tweeting, right? So whether it's his own opinion or opinion of his team, I think when you convey a message from your name, it somehow directly or indirectly becomes your message at the end of the day. The
biggest question that I keep getting that I don't have an answer for, and it's rare that I don't have an answer. It may not always be the right answer, but I always have an answer. The answer that I don't have is why he's doing this. What is behind his motivation to do this? To my knowledge, there's not a single act of violence or corruption or wrongdoing of any prominent person in that community having done in the past. So what's motivating it is hate speech. I called it gubernatorial hate speech the other day because that's what it is. Why is he doing this? And I don't know the answer to that.
It's very interesting. I mean,
I don't understand this fraud that he's talking about.
Well, this is what
what's
I want.
also interesting to me about the other tweet was he mentioned compound. Like, compound is such a interesting word because now all of the Texans are going to think that it's some crazy organization that is like anti-American. So the word compound really triggers me. Do you feel the same way?
As I said in the press conference the other day, I know compounds. I represented a Branch Davidian. I'm pretty familiar with what a compound is. And ironically or not, the FBI and the ATF did exactly the same thing to those people. And I'm not here to defend David Koresh or his beliefs or his acts of pedophilia or whatever. But they call you a compound for a reason, right? It absolutely emasculates you from any legitimate association, right?
Yeah.
And that word, it's not a neutral word. It's not an arguably neutral word, right?
Yeah.
And that's what I think is super interesting is that a lot of the language, again, that he's speaking puts the Epic community in the defensive, right? They have to almost start defending themselves. And in this
Hell,
tweet,
they hired a criminal defense lawyer.
There you
They've not
go.
been charged with a crime.
best in the game. Shout out to Dan.
Can I ask like one question on this, right? I think in this forum, I think we should be realistic and say that there could be some bias, right? I mean, we all like personally, we have two of the hosts. They are Muslim, so
That's fair, but I ain't Muslim, right? I couldn't even spell Muslim before I got hired.
So my question to you would be, and we had the same exact discussion, right? When we initially had kind of the Salina clip go viral, and we discussed on it. When somebody who is, let's say, an outsider, for lack of a better phrase, they come in, are there limitations on what they should be allowed to do, what they shouldn't be allowed to do? Like, for example, let's say we talked about Indians coming in and they just want to make everything, kind of cater to them. So we talked about, them being self-sustaining in terms of the local economy, Indian grocery stores, restaurants, temples, predominantly Indians are Hindu. So should there and is there like a line that is a mix of, hey, you came in here because there's clearly something that works, right? There are opportunities given, there's environment that provide you with the type of freedom that you want. Should there be a line, from that perspective to come in to say, hey, what's the balance? Like, that's what I'm trying to understand. Is there a balance? Is there not a balance?
That's slightly different because the Indians are H-1B visa people. They're immigrants coming from India. These Muslims are born here. They're like American that grew up here in Texas.
But but if we're arguing that this is a First Amendment right, whether they're born here or they're not born here, when you're in America, you have that fundamental right. Even tourists have that fundamental right. So it's not a right given to you just by being an American. It's anyone that's in America gets that right? So that's what I'm trying to understand is, should there be anything like that, or just because as Americans we believe in this fundamental First Amendment right that anyone can kind of their desire to be in a community is covered by the First Amendment, so it's okay. Like you could do whatever you want.
I guess my answer to that is pretty simple because I'm a pretty simple man. First off, we're a nation of immigrants. The idea that these newcomers here, well, guess what, Hoss? We're all newcomers. Look at the free world out there. This country's 350, whatever it is. We ain't old. Yeah. Second, as long as you are here legally and you are not violating the law, you have a right to do whatever the hell you want to do as long as you're following the law. That's it, period, full stop. And we can't have too many Indian grocery stores. We can't have too many mosques. Well, okay, we got too many Baptist churches in East Texas. Let's go take down some of those too. I mean, sure. As long as you're following the law, you can do whatever the hell you want. That's the whole idea this country was founded on.
Well, I would argue two things against that. First thing I would say is, even though anyone can go and do anything and they're not violating the law, would it also not be the case that too many of one particular group could go and establish and change the law in a way that benefits them?
Well, locally? That's called democracy, isn't it?
Yeah. And I think that's one of the fears, right? Is not just they could go be their own place, but eventually, there are more like brown people, here, and it's a number that's only going to continue to increase. Right. I think that's definitely one of the bigger fears is. They'll get to go and kind of create and pander everything in a way that benefits them. Is that
it's them, those, not us. They're different than us. Yeah. They can't be right. I mean, look at that comment.
Well, Dan, I wanted to show you some of these comments. This was the post that went viral for us. Has almost 500,000 views and a lot of engagement. And if you read, even the comments can get likes, so they get like promoted. So top comment. there goes the football program, because Salina's infamously known as a football town. One of our favorites here was, imagine living in Las Colinas. They're everywhere but the deodorant aisle.
I went there, yeah. I went there.
Yeah, so North Texas has become Little India, and no one's voted for this. We aren't talking about this enough. It's out of control. They took over Frisco near Stonebar. So the comment section gets toxic pretty fast. We have a rule of thumb. It's okay to be racist and funny because you're funny, but when you're racist and not funny, you're just pretty much racist at that point.
That's fair.
Yeah. So we like to have fun with it because ultimately we understand. I mean, we grew up, like I said, I was.
But look at Miggy, Bennett, whatever, future doctors, pharmacists, engineers, and accountants.
We had people defending for
there
sure.
That's
the truth.
There we go.
And they were responding to all of the hate comments. There were people.
And Betty White and Waxahachie, who do you think your oncologist is, Precious?
So again, not to get off track on the epic conversation, but clearly like the demographic changes in Texas and Dallas, start these dialogues of like what's right, how's it supposed to look, what's better, what version looks right, what's okay. I want to kind of get back to the legal aspects of this. So Greg,
can I ask a quick question?
Yeah, go for it.
What is Epic City? So for people that are like trying to understand, like what is Epic City? I think there's a narrative too that it's being backed by a foreign country. So if you could shed some light on what it is and who is actually creating Epic City and
Epic City is a proposed development that will border, I think, Hunt County and Collin County. It's 400 acres, and despite Greg Abbott's edict that all construction must cease, no construction has started yet. He's going to send the Texas Rangers out to investigate.
That's
what, a cow patty? There's nothing there.
It's just farmland.
But it's a proposed city or a proposed community that will have, and this is what's got everybody's knickers twisted, that will have a mosque as the centerpiece of the subdivision. Yeah. They will have adult daycare facilities. They will have educational places. They will have an area that's, for lack of a better description, Muslim friendly. It is not being sold, or the plots are not being sold only to Muslims. Anybody that can buy one, anybody that wants one, can buy one. Probably won't be a huge shock that it's going to be mostly Muslim people. But as I told Ibrahim, Inram, one of the developers, shit, I'll take a lot as a fee, dude. This looks like this looks like a nice place.
This is very expensive.
Yeah, these
development.
The houses will be in the $400,000-$600,000 range.
Oh, okay, not bad.
Yeah, so they're affordable, but they're not starter homes. But the idea is they want to be able to live in a community of like-minded individuals. What's more American than that? Mm-hmm. And so it's nothing more or less than a proposed development that will follow all the laws, all the rules, all the applications that's required, so that they can assimilate and hang out together, right?
So and who's running this? Who's doing the project? Who's responsible for it?
And I don't want to name him because he's already getting death threats. But the brainchild of the idea is a member of the current mosque, and he lives in the area. All the houses near the current Epic Mosque they're sold out. There's no more building around them. So he thought, well, what the heck? Let's get an area further out of town where we can literally build a subdivision around a mosque. And that's what's generated all this nonsense.
Got it. So there's no foreign country funding this.
No.
Okay.
No.
So again,
it's not going to be an ISIS training ground.
I saw walls. There's a crazy narrative that they're going to have.
Osama bin Laden has not come back from the dead.
There was a narrative.
I'm sure these are real comments that are happening.
No, I'm sure
it's legit. It's legit comments. There was a comment.
He was in the sauna.
I was in the sauna with somebody at Frisco, and they said, I heard that there's going to be a part in the community where they're going to do honor killing. They're going to have a place in the community designated for that.
Yeah.
I was like, bro,
they're going to live stream it too.
Yeah, I mean, what are you thinking? Like, it's just.
Well, to be fair, there are some people that need killing, but probably not too many in that community.
So something you touched on, the Texas Rangers. So Greg Abbott, he tweets, Texas is a law and order state. those scheming to evade law enforcement scrutiny must know justice is awaiting. Strong, right? That's why I directed the Texas Rangers to fully investigate the group behind the proposed Epic compound for potentially violating criminal law. So what is the goal? What's like a tweet like this? Well, why would he say that if it's so early in the development? They haven't even broken ground.
Look, there's probably not a law enforcement agency as a whole that I respect more than the Texas Rangers. I think they are completely legit on the whole. Every organization, every bad apple, there's a bad apple in every tree or whatever. But I mean, I have represented Rangers. I have nothing but the utmost respect for that organization. But it's kind of cartoonish. I mean, they come in with the white Stetson and with the khakis and with the boots and with the belt. He said Texas Rangers for a reason, right? I'm bringing in Roy Rogers and Dale and Trigger. Here we come. We white people are going to save you from these outsiders. And as I said earlier, dude, call me up. 713-426-2244, Ranger. I'll walk you out there. Come on by. We are literally an open book. And for him to say something that I'm sending the Rangers to investigate. Investigate what? Nothing has happened yet. We haven't even submitted an application for approval. Investigate what? And again, to your point, Aaron, why is he doing this? I don't get that. I mean, the obvious explanation to me is he's doing it to bend to the political right. I think he thinks he's a potential presidential candidate, and the further right you are these days, I guess the more likely it is you'll get elected. Paxton, my friend and client, has been a little more objective in his comments about it, which essentially have been, if there's a crime, we're going to investigate it. If there's an allegation, we'll do it. But if they abide by the law, that's their right. But Abbott has been completely incendiary.
You've taken on like a lot of legendary cases in Texas and all over the U.S. Do you have a relationship with Greg Abbott?
No.
Okay.
No. And again, politicians to me are just like, I don't put them on a higher level or a lower level. They just now, what you see in a politician is maybe what someone would argue you see in a lawyer. They're always doing it for personal or political gain. And I think that's been true of a lot of political figures together. But I've never had an ideological difference or on the fundamental difference with Abbott. I'm not politically active. I don't really care what he does. But this is, at the end of the day, his tweets, his press releases, his statements are not only morally wrong, they're dangerous. And people's lives are getting threatened, including mine. There was a picture of my wife that somebody tweeted that they lifted off my Facebook. This is his wife, and my wife, shockingly, my wife is a beautiful woman. I know that's hard for anybody to understand.
Shout out to Ms. Cogdell.
Yes, sir. And she's recovering from cancer treatment. And to have her see her picture, and we're going to publish her home address soon. I mean, really, Governor, this is what your results or your speech has caused? I mean, it's crazy. Act like an adult. If you think we have committed a crime, fine. Go investigate it. Send the Rangers, send Don Knotts back from the dead. I don't care. But you do not have the moral right. You might have the legal right, but you don't have the moral right to suggest that these people are committing crimes with no factual basis, to suggest that there's going to be no-go zones. Nobody's proposed that, to suggest that there's going to be Sharia law, but no one has suggested that but you. And it's mind-boggling to me that he's that irresponsible.
How do you even fight that, Dan? I mean, there are two battles, right? There's the legal battle, which you said it's been 10 days that you came on board, so that's probably a strategy that you're discussing on. Then there's kind of the social battle, right? Which is battling people's like predispositions, or perhaps Greg Abbott's best message is kind of inciting a lot of these thoughts to be out in the open. I think to me the second one is more dangerous. I think the first one is probably a little bit easier for you because you've done that all your life.
I live in courtrooms.
Right. Like how do you handle the second piece
look at
of
this,
it?
Texas investigating Muslim megacity, and it a megacity. It's a subdivision, for God's sakes.
Well, I bring this up because this is Laura Ingraham. This is a very popular Fox News host and a popular platform that a lot of millions of people watch and follow. So I want to play this clip.
Look at the headline. Whoa, the all-Muslim city in Texas being built called Epic City was building the entire city with no building permits. We haven't even applied for the building permits. We're in the permit, creation stage. We haven't built anything. We haven't even put a shovel in the ground in our subdivision, not in our city. It's just, good God.
Can you put some clarity? Because a lot of viewers aren't familiar with how the court cases work. Is this going to lead? Are you going to go to a court? Like, is it going to be an official court case with the juror? How? Like, what is this going to look like moving forward?
That's a good question. The short answer is I don't know yet. Right? I'm trying to have rational discussions with Abbott, which may take a minute. I'm trying to have rational discussions with Ken Paxton's office, with the Texas State Securities Board office, with this office. By the way, the Texas State Securities Board and Ken Paxton's office have both issued basically demand letters, subpoenas, whatever, to provide information. All that's been turned in a week early. We sent it out today. And so we will comply with every law, every rule, every regulation. If we feel like at the end of the day our permits aren't being properly approved or they're being improperly denied, then we can institute a lawsuit. But I think if we just, like, for example, they got a cease and desist a letter that is epic from the Texas State Funeral Home Commission. I didn't know there was such a thing, but apparently there is, that said that we must stop, that the current mosque must stop providing funeral services. We don't provide funeral services. All they do, pursuant to Muslim custom, is if there's a death, they'll call the mosque. The mosque will call a funeral home. The funeral home will go get the body, do whatever they do. Then the funeral home will bring the body to the mosque. The body will be washed, wrapped, and prayed over, and then released back to the funeral home. All they're doing is washing and praying. They're not cremating. They're not embalming. They are washing the body, wrapping it, and praying for. But we got a cease and desist letter that we have to stop performing the funeral. I called them today and said, look, let me come to Austin. I'm an open book. You can come here. I can come there, whatever. But by the way, we're not performing funeral home services. We're washing and praying over body. Oh, we didn't know that. Yeah, that's what's happening, despite what Abbott is saying. But it's just a microcosm of how reckless and wrong these remarks are.
Do you feel, because you take on like really risky cases, now knowing all of the stuff that comes with this case, do you kind of regret?
No, I like it.
You like it?
I as I said earlier, I became a criminal defense lawyer because I don't like bullies, and the more you try to bully me, I'll dig my heels into China. I don't care. I'm not going away. I may not win, but I ain't going away. The sad fact is I'm really 38, but I look like this because I won't concede.
So how do you assess risk? Do you just go for the riskiest thing and be like, okay, this is what excites me, or this is what, like?
I've taken enough risk in my personal life, but it's not like I have a strong sense of this is too risky or this isn't risky enough. If the case interests me and it's something that appeals to me, I certainly don't take every case that comes in the door at 68 years old. I take the case that I believe that's interesting to me and that I can make a difference on. And oh yeah, there's a fee issue involved, but if they check those three boxes, I'm going. If not, I'm not interested. So I hope that answers your question.
Awesome question.
How do you during one of our research, I don't know how accurate this is, but you've argued in front of the Supreme Court as well. Is that accurate?
No, I'm not an appellate court guy.
Okay.
I'm a trial court guy.
What's like in your mind, what was like the toughest thing that you've argued in your career, you think?
Well, any discussion with my wife, for sure.
What is the record on that? Are you
I think 73,000.
73,000?
Yeah. mean,
Have you learned any-
Johnny Depp's the only guy I know that's ever won an argument against a woman. I mean, shout out to him.
Shout out to the fire clip right there.
Have you kind of learned from that, and you're not taking on any more of those types?
Well, I'm not taking any more wives. That's for sure.
In the Muslim community, you're allowed 4. Yeah. So,
So hey, think about it.
No, I'm good.
You heard it here. You heard it here
I'm
first.
kidding. I'm kidding.
I've given away more homes than Bob Perry has sold, so I'm not doing that again. If you're asking the toughest case that I've ever argued in terms of guilt innocence, that's kind of like, who's your favorite child? None of them. No, I'm kidding. A lot of cases are very difficult. The Branch Davidian case was very difficult. There was a case that my mentor and I tried back in 1984 where I literally shocked myself with a cattle prod in front of a jury to prove that a cattle prod wouldn't kill you. That was fun.
We spoke about that last night, that you did this. What was the thought process?
That was
you were very
actually
young.
the question that I was thinking about. So that I saw that online. That's actually true. You shocked yourself.
100%. Yeah.
And that caused what resulted in that case?
We got probation. So there was a family called the Ellebrock family, and the Ellebrocks owned like 10,000 acres in Kerrville, and this back in 1984. God knows what that would be worth today, right? But back then it was just raw. So they were kind of land rich and dirt poor. They owned all this land, but they didn't really exercise or obtain any income from it. And our clients, it's a long and windy story, so bear with me. Our clients attempted to generate money by harvesting cedar on their property, shaving the cedar down, and making wooden keychains out of the cedar and sort of burning in this cedar keychains, Jesus loves me, or whatever. And the cedar keychain industry fell on hard times, shocker. So they resorted to picking up transients and offering a place, an internship, if you will, for the transients to come and work. And once they learned the cedar keychain industry, then they'd pay them. Well, the transients didn't like that as much as they had hoped, so they exercised a little self-help and then just chained them there and kidnapped them and wouldn't leave. That's the good news. The bad news is there were torture sessions. It was like Deliverance gone wild, right? It was a crazy fact pattern. I mean, of all the cases I've ever had, maybe the craziest fact pattern ever. So several of these people were literally chained against their will.
Wow.
Then they would torture them with a cattle prod and tape record the torture sessions, right?
Wow.
Yeah. And then one fella died after he was hit for days with a cattle prod. Then they burned the body, and they played Johnny Cash's Ring of Fire. Shout out to the Man in Black.
Wow.
They played Johnny Cash's Ring of Fire while they were burning the body. The Texas Rangers came in, guys with a white hat and the Stetson came in, found some charred human bone, and they were charged with murder, kidnapping, all the stuff. So there was again, this is a windy answer. There was a medical examiner named Vincent DeMaio, and in 1984, Dr. DeMaio said, by looking at a piece of charred human bone, that, oh yeah, this fella came to his death as a result of a heart attack caused by electrical stimulation, to wit, a cattle prod. This was in 1984. They couldn't tell you that in the year of our Lord.
Just for like one piece.
Yeah,
he came
but
to
looking
this
at a piece of
conclusion.
charred human bone, which is absolute bullshit testimony, right?
Yeah.
So I'm a good frat boy from UT. I'm 4 years out of UT, getting shocked with a cattle prod, in Hell Week. So I'm like, hey, boss, I can do that. So I was crossing.
Legend.
Well, first Mr. Haynes tried it, and he threw his shoulder out of socket. I was cross-examining Dr. DeMaio, and I said, let me get this straight. It's your opinion that somebody died as a result of being cattle prodded? Yes. Well, is this the same sort of cattle prod? Yes. Would you put these batteries in the cattle prod? Yes. So, okay, doctor, I shocked myself. And am I dead now, doctor? Am I dead yet? Am I dead yet? I shocked myself here, shocked myself there, shocked myself there. Doctor, I'm still alive, right? And then passed the witness. These Aunt B looking ladies on the jury, they just looked at me like, you have lost your mind.
Is that recorded? Is that available online to see? Or?
Well, they didn't have cameras in the courtroom, but there's stories about it in the Kerrville Daily Times, and it's. I actually, one of my my tunnel of triumph, my egobilia or whatever at the office. There's a picture that says defense attorney turns cattle prod on himself, right? And I have that framed with the cattle prod, but the newspaper article was getting a little grainy, so I called the newspaper and said, "Can you get me this image from 1984, whenever it was?" And this little old lady says, "Yes, sir, I can. Can you tell me why you want that?" And I said, "Yes, ma'am." I'm like, "Oh my God, you're that lawyer. I remember when that happened." So,
that's great. Well, Dan, luck will have
Stuff
it.
you do when you're young, you know.
We actually brought some tasers to reenact. Test your savage. No, but that story is just so legendary. And like, again, when we were just doing a little research and kind of going through the history of some of your cases and the things that you've accomplished and just the wild things that you've done, it's just like, man, too bad social media wasn't a thing back then, because you would have gone viral multiple times for like a lot of.
In 10 days, you're already all over social media.
Exactly.
Right? Like after taking on
Epic.
Taking on Epic as your client. Imagine, you know, the court clip of you like shocking yourself.
Well, the Branch Davidian case, which was, I had international attention, and my client Clive Doyle, bless his heart, may he rest in peace. How I got to him was a whole nother story, but there were, I think, 12 on trial, 3 were acquitted, and Clive, my client, was one of the 3, but he was the only one of the 3 that didn't have an immigration hold, right? Which meant that he was literally the only one that walked out of the courthouse. So we're having a scotch or 15 in my case back then, and the press is all over us, and they kept asking Clive Doyle, "Well, Mr. Doyle, what do you think about this?" He said, "Well, I just want to thank God and David Koresh for this verdict. I just want to thank God and David Koresh for this verdict. I just want to thank." And after my 4th or 5th or 15th scotch, I grabbed a microphone from him and I said, "Well, I really appreciate my client's faith and his commitment and his loyalty, but I just called the State Bar of Texas. Neither God nor David Koresh is licensed. I'd like a little credit for this verdict."
That's right.
That's right. So I do want to play this clip here. It's about 50 seconds and just kind of get your response and just see what your perspective is. So again, this is Greg Abbott on Laura Ingraham discussing the Epic development.
Well, in part by that statement, but also in part by information that we've gathered, there appear to be multiple violations that have taken place here. One is information has been provided to investors that appears to be misleading. Another is they appear to be in violation of fair housing laws. Also, we found that, they talk about doing all this building, but they don't have any building permits to actually do any building, and they have challenges even getting those building permits. Believe this or not, we've even received information that they may have been conducting a funeral home without legal authority. Bottom line, Laura, is that there so many questions arose, especially information that we received, that led us to need to call the elite Texas Rangers to conduct a criminal investigation to find out if criminal laws in Texas have been violated. Well, in part by that statement.
So that was the clip that was looping. So maybe you've seen that before. Maybe this is the first time you're seeing it. It definitely touches some of the things we've already spoke about, but just seeing that on national television on a prominent show, tell us how that, makes you feel.
Well, it to use his parlance, based upon the information that I have received, he appears to be full of shit. None of those suggestions are factually based. None of those suggestions are true. They're all false, and he can't couch it in terms of we have received information. What information? From whom? When? What was it? You can't just say we have received information and there appears to be, and not recognize the reaction that's going to cause in the Betty Whites in Richardson. It's reckless beyond description. If he wants to say we're conducting a lawful and appropriate investigation into potential law violations, great, knock yourself out. But he's not going on Laura Ingraham's show to do anything other than promote his political agenda. He's not saving the world there. He's not investigating. He is promoting his identity and his political future. That's all that is.
So talk to me through this kind of motivation, right? So he's framing this conversation to almost get ahead of this development.
Epicenter of Islam in America. Really?
Yeah. So again, these narratives
I think that's a little bit more of like a Fox News narrative.
How about They're trying to build a church, Greg. They want to go there 5 times a day.
Yep. Okay. So essentially they're creating this narrative, and obviously he's pushing it, and they're going on, national media to stoke this, right? So the motivation, is it that they want to almost make this so, rile everyone up to stop them from doing the development?
Of course they do.
That's the goal, right?
I mean, look at it. They're talking about doing all this building, but they don't have any building permits to do any building. No kidding. We're not doing any building until we get the lawfully approved permits. It's just, good God.
So the building construction has not started, obviously, because there's no permits. Isn't that a very easy thing to debunk online? Hey, here's
it should
where
be,
are, right?
but with all these, they go everywhere but the deodorant aisle. I mean, it's not as easy as it should be.
Okay, so there's also simultaneously, and we discussed this a little earlier.
This is a major issue. Building an entire city without permits is not only illegal, but shows you a blatant disregard for the law. None of that has happened. King Lagosawa, or whatever his name is, Trump Gunner, shocker.
Again, a lot of the social media profiles they're creating this echo chamber of misinformation to essentially scare away, the development of this. And will they win on their pursuit?
Look at this comment from Alina Zofia. Why the hell do Muslims need their own little enclaves in a country they don't even belong to? It's as absurd as me waltzing into Iran.
Yeah, Precious, they were born here, probably lived here longer than you have. And that's what I don't get, right? And I mean, you're a second generation, third generation?
First
generation?
Yeah. Born and raised in Texas.
Okay, well, you're as Texan as Robert Earl Keen as far as I'm concerned. You may not drink, Falstaff beer. Maybe you do. I don't know. But if you're legally here and you're a Texas citizen and you're a United States, you have just as much right to do anything as my ass does, for God's sakes.
And I'm a proud Texan, and I love Texas, and I love the people, and
you're just upset with the Mavericks.
No, I hate the Mavericks. Dumont, ugly, terrible.
Aaron was one of the biggest Dallas Mavericks fans. Lifelong.
I mean, lifelong Cowboy fan. Yeah. Unfortunately, Mavericks fan, and just a Texan, man. I love my country people. I love the type of people I grew up with. I love the conservative values. I love the things that they believe in. My family and I also believe in, and our faith is actually more similar than it is. The differences are very minor, and as you get older, because of things like COVID and the different misinformation that we see in the media, you start to learn that they stoke these narratives because they have goals and they have different kind of motivations that are beyond being truth tellers and giving us the right type of information. I do empathize with my fellow Texans who have concerns about these things that are surfacing like a city, like an epic city, but knowing the intentions and understanding what the purpose of this city is, and then trying to educate some of my friends, even like, hey, like, it's not what you think it is, and do a little more research. And
how far do you get with your friends when you try to slow them down and say, wait a minute, it's not like that? Do they listen to you?
It's a difficult conversation because I try to listen myself before I even speak to understand. I try to understand, like, listen, where are you coming from? And I always go back to, listen, this is undeveloped land, and this is kind of the goal of what the neighborhood is supposed to look like. I also try to educate them that, hey, guys, simultaneously, there is a interest group, Las Vegas Sands and the Adelsons, who bought the Mavs, who are pushing really hard to open and legalize gambling, to open a big casino in the heart of Texas, to essentially promote degeneracy and create problems for a lot of the living Texans. Their goals aren't to create a casino so people can be happy and be rich. It's usually goes the other direction. So while they're putting all the light and shining it on this epic city, they're trying to pass legislation and move this Las Vegas Sands and casino resort right in the heart of Dallas, which I feel like is more problematic. So are you familiar with this at all? Is this in your kind of peer view?
First I've seen of it. I didn't connect those dots at all. That's interesting.
So for me, I maybe those dots aren't connected, but I think it's interesting that simultaneously an early stage, undeveloped community is being highlighted and talked about nationally, while there's like casinos and what comes next being kind of pushed and trying to become legalized here in the heart of Dallas. And I do challenge a lot of my friends, like, hey, what do you think is worse? Like this city that's, northeast, like far from downtown where nobody lives, a community that they're trying to build, or trying to uproot, take away our best player from our basketball team, compromise the team, and create a casino in the heart of Dallas. Like, what do you think is worse? I don't know what you guys feel about it.
Believe it or not, that caused the amount of economic damage just that single decision caused Dallas is tremendous. Just trading away Luka caused tremendous damage.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Help me with the economics of that, because I'm an idiot.
So Luka Doncic is, in terms, there are a few benefits that he adds that perhaps no other player adds. One is because he's Serbian. He's Serbian. He's probably the most popular player.
Slovenian, but
is he?
Slovenian. Sorry,
Slovenian, yeah.
Jokic is Serbian.
Yes, correct.
So he's Slovenian. So he is the largest. He has the largest following in all of Europe.
Does he really? Okay.
Yeah. So he before coming to the Mavericks, he played for Barcelona, Real Madrid, the basketball club. So he already had a very big presence in Europe. Then he came over to Dallas, and then all of a sudden, the Mavs franchise was kind of revitalized at that time because he was the face of the franchise.
Dirk was getting old, kind of passing the baton. Luka is, destroying all these records, putting up all these statistics, a top-selling jersey, filling the seats. Essentially the longer the Mavs, the more they win, the more events at the stadium, the more jobs for the people who work, the more the economy raises for the restaurants and the bars around the stadium. So LeBron James is a good example who, when he left Cleveland, they've tracked up to $2 billion in losses that the city had just because of his influence.
Or when he went back.
So then when he went back, they saw an influx.
Wow.
The day that he announced his return back to Cleveland, within the next 30 days, they could see, they could quantify some $1 billion+ of economic impact.
Okay. And so
these players have a lot of influence locally.
And this interest group that is a top donor for Donald Trump, and as transparency.gov shows us, there's a lot of donorship here and dollars going into Abbott's hands, is responsible, for some of this recent decision making. So I was curious to hear from your perspective, when you're going up against the guy, because you're not directly going up against Greg Abbott by any means, but when he's on the other side of the argument and the case that you're trying to make, do you take a look at who his top contributors are? Are you paying attention to where the money is and maybe that's where the influence is? Is this something in your atmosphere at all?
I mean, it's not really a tool in my toolbox that I've used historically, because this is not what I do historically. My normal toolbox is used to combat the state of Texas or the United States of America. I represent individuals charged with or being investigated for wrongdoing. So this is the first time I've represented an entity pre-charging. There may be charges. I hope not, because there's nothing legitimate in my view to charge them with. But the short answer to that is no, I've never done it, because my opposition is usually a governmental entity and not an individual. But what you're about to show certainly fascinates me.
And this is something Kelvin, who was on our show, who ran for the Congressional District 26 in Texas, put in front of us, that all the money is being tracked, and they show you where the money comes from and how they spend the money. And it's just interesting to see some of these contributors who have their own interest, who put money into people like Greg Abbott's campaign, and then you start to see their decisions and what they stoke in the national media kind of follows interests that maybe aren't even about the people in Texas, but kind of bigger things that maybe people in Texas don't know about, that I just encourage to do your own research and see and follow the money, because a lot of times that'll show you a lot. Now, this Epic City, Dan, is Epic City being funded by tax dollars? Like, how does that work?
Not an ounce, not a dollar, not a cent, not a euro, not nothing is being funded by no. It's being funded by the people that are buying lots through the investment opportunity from citizens. And
in fact, they're going to positively contribute to Texas in forms of taxes,
Absolutely.
property taxes,
Absolutely.
economic returns, right?
I mean, Hunt County School District will benefit directly. Collin County School District. I mean, this is a financial benefit, if not windfall, to those two counties.
How do you think the, talking about school districts, one of the bigger national conversation is dismantling the Department of Ed and kind of giving those rights back to the state.
Yeah, because we don't need any more education. We should have done away with the Department of Education a long time ago.
Yeah. So with the conversation being, giving that right back to the states on how they decide to educate. I think with events like this, that could that also be another fear where, okay, if we're giving the right back to the state and the state somehow there's a new group, a different group that gains influence and that gains power to be able to pass laws and change kind of the society in a way that benefits them, could they then perhaps change the educational system as well to go and teach, kind of the concepts that benefits their group more?
I mean, it's possible. I haven't thought that through. I mean, you guys are educating me on the financial aspect of it that frankly I didn't look at before. So I mean, that's possible. That's not the intended purpose of these folks, the members out there. And again, being my first real exposure to the Islamic faith or to a community of Muslims, I find them completely warm, family-driven, appropriate, kind, decent. I mean, they're lovely people. Right? They may not shop at Brooks Brothers or whatever.
I mean, maybe like Aaron and Timmy, you guys can kind of shed some light. I think this is a great point that you just mentioned, Dan, which is a lot of the Muslim people that are here, they are actually escaping the violence that existed back home, right? Like, for example, your families are from Afghanistan. They left the country during a very during a period of war, right? So a lot of people maybe have this preconceived notion that the religion or people in this entire group are violent group, or they believe in they have some extreme beliefs. But a lot of the Muslim community and Muslim people that are here to escape that violence as well, right? Their families perhaps have been influenced in some way, impacted in some way, where they had to leave their homes to then go and find a new home where they can have stability, where they can educate and raise their kids. So they believe in the same things that the perhaps local crowd does, right? And I think that's something that perhaps they're not thinking about because it's at the end of the day, media portrays a lot more negative than the positive. Sure. And globally, when all this messaging is being portrayed that about violence and about these extreme beliefs, that impacts kind of the group that is here as well, which is the complete opposite group because they escaped that. Would you guys agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, what's interesting to me is how Texans get tricked so easily, especially adults. Just in general, not just Texans, like Americans. Just I feel like, why doesn't people try to go to the primary source or try to actually get the information accurate before believing things? So I guess, do you have any comments on that? Like, how does it upset you that sort of false narratives, people get emotional and react to it
Of course it
quickly?
does. But, I think a lot of that, and again, you guys know way more about this than I do, but everybody lives in an echo chamber now because of the algorithms that social media creates. You can find support for whatever ridiculous belief you want to have, right? So they Google it, they search on it, or they get fed it, and they go, "Well, I'm right. They're all violent. They're all, they're all crazy. They're all dangerous." I think to some extent you've got sort of the generations working against each other. My generation, if you will, we didn't have much experience or much contact with people that didn't look and act and attend school just like us. So we're, boomer or worse, right? I didn't have any Muslims at Stratford High School in Houston in 1970. But we had like 2 blacks out of 1,200 students, right? It was if it wasn't segregated by design, it was segregated by reality, right? We just didn't have any exposure. And then the younger kids, I think they gravitated, younger than me, just about everything is, but you gravitate to social media or your phone or whatever to get your information or look for confirmation, and there it is. So you have both gaps or both generations, iterations or whatever, are equally misinformed for different reasons. And nobody wants to take the time to find out what the answer is. They want to find an answer that corroborates or buttresses their predisposition, right? Mm-hmm. And that's what's happening in this situation on steroids, right? Nobody's trying to find the truth. They're simply trying to be right. Whatever, and in this case, right means to the right, but they're just looking for, I'm right, they're wrong.
It's the confirmation bias, right?
Confirmation bias to the extreme.
And Dan is hitting the nail on the head. I mean, these algorithms, essentially, they pump what you want to hear and they reconfirm your bias. So if you already have been maybe led the wrong way, there's enough out there to make it seem like actually that's accurate and you should feel that way. And I challenge my fellow Texans who, to what Sujan was mentioning, the Epic community specifically that, we grew up in and we're familiar with, to get to learn more about your neighbors. Cause a lot of these people are very conservative, very family oriented, very faith-based. They do not like degeneracy. They do not like, the gambling and drinking and smoking. These things are not okay. They prioritize education. They prioritize community and giving. They work hard. They're very hardworking people, and they're entrepreneurs, and they create businesses. They create business opportunities, and they're fair people. They're very fair people, and it's just part of the pillars of Islam that praying 5 times a day is a part of one of the 5 pillars. And so being and having access and being close to a mosque is very important. And also they want to be mindful of not bothering other people. Like a lot of times it's like they don't want to bother you. They don't want to get in your way. They want to try to get out of your way as much as possible. And that's almost part of the intention of this is like, hey, this is undeveloped land that nobody lives in, and they want to create a community. So just look at the intention. And I challenge my Texans because I think you'll see a lot of things you like and not a lot that you don't.
I mean, look, not to get us off topic, but back. Epic City's attorney says Epic Developments, this is Fox, a victim of, quote, racial profiling. And they even finger quote, or they quote, put quotes around racial profiling. First off, roll it back down.
This way?
Yeah. I've never used the word racial profiling in my life, right?
Yeah.
But the whole idea that I'm saying racial profiling, it demeans the integrity and the value of what I said. What I said is that it's xenophobic to make these statements, but I guess maybe Fox viewers can't spell xenophobic. I don't know. but when you say racial profiling, you're degrading. They're cheaping in it. They're making it worse than it is. And then they put quotes around it. So it's just like, this guy's an idiot. He doesn't know what he's talking about. It's just like, perfect. There we go.
But your fight in this is strictly a constitutional right that they have, and that is what you're defending. This is not about one particular faith or the other. This is strictly becoming a battle of they have a constitutional right to go and do this. They're not breaking any laws. They're not harming anybody. And whether it could be Muslims, whether it's Hindus, Jewish people, Christians, it doesn't matter. You would go defend any group because this is like something you believe in, right?
My battle in this case is even more simple than that. My battle in this case is to quit letting a bully spread lies. That's my goal, right? And we can say Constitution, we can wrap it, we can put.
That's what Texans, they use that a lot.
First Amendment, Second Amendment.
But to a lawyer, is it a zoning case?
It could be a zoning case, but it's not that complex. Just tell the truth, Abbott. Yeah. That's all I'm asking you to do, dude. Because he is so poisoning the well for anybody that potentially might want to drink from it, right? He's getting so much animosity to it. You think the people on the city council or what have you for Collin County is going to be predisposed to vote to approve any single
exactly.
Oh hell no, not them people. I don't want them turning against me. That's Abbott.
So Dan, we spoke about the comment section and kind of what a lot of people are talking about, and it just reminded me of this clip from Sacha Baron Cohen. And I want to just play it live. Maybe you've seen it, maybe you haven't, and just get your response. And this is about a 2-minute clip.
chosen as the location of a brand new state-of-the-art mosque. I know some of you are thinking, okay, this is just another typical mosque. This, guys, is going to be the world's largest mosque outside of the Middle East.
He's clapping by himself.
To me, when I hear the word mosque, I think of charitable.
Is there a need for this in Kingman? Yes, there is.
How?
Why? Your town will become a hub for tourism for Muslims around the world. And I got a whoop whoop. No. I don't want that shit here. You bring it up, we probably will have problems.
We'll all be moving out of this thing.
Okay, let's before we make up our minds, let's take a closer look at this wonderful mosque. We made up our minds. The Imam Zayed Wahhabi Mosque. You guys will have the choice between two different designs. This is the first design. This is design 1. And this is design 2. So who supports design 1? Nobody. Okay, so you're all for
So is this the Epic City case?
In a nutshell, you couldn't design a skid around it any better. That is exactly what's
Maybe
happening
that's the
here.
strategy, Dan. We got to get design 1, design 2, and present
Actually,
it to the people.
I talked to the developers about putting that very piece on their website.
Oh, really?
They haven't done it yet, but they're like, yeah, that's what we're doing. I said, that's exactly what they're doing.
Yeah, it's to me that clip is hilarious. I just think it's funny to laugh at some of these things because
Having been to Kingman, Arizona, not too long ago,
you've
that
been
is
there?
exactly.
Oh, you've
that
been there?
community, right?
yeah. Well, I just think it's funny because the comment section of a lot of your clips specifically, which I pulled up earlier, reminds me of that group of, and this is your interview you had with News Nation, and I go into the comment
This lawyer's
section.
getting paid a ton of money. Not enough, precious.
This lawyer's getting paid a ton of money. Attorneys will work for anyone. We've already seen what they're doing. In the EU, it'll be fun and games until they start doing the same shit here. The American people know exactly what is leading, and so does Gov Abbott. Playing the race card and others, playing the race card and other kinds of cards have been played out. So that's why they tag your headlines as saying racial divide, because there is an exhaustion of individuals here that when they speak their mind, they're called racist. It's such an easy thing to throw around racism, where this has really little to do with racism, and the people who are actually experiencing that are on one side, right? So this will be our downfall from within. A lot of these comments makes me think of that group of people who are essentially being tricked into thinking something's happening when it's really not. So when you read comments like this on a video that you have with News Nation, like, how does it make you feel? Where does it land on you?
I think my first reaction is I should have charged more money because I had no idea how hard this was going to be. But in all seriousness, it's just reflective of misinformation, right? And it highlights, encapsulates just how much work we have to do to try to educate, right? That's my job. And I've been criticized for coming after Abbott a little too aggressively in some of my remarks. Maybe that's true, but I don't know how to fight fire unless it's with other fire. Maybe I should be attacking his minions, his people, his team, or whatever. But the damage that his falsehoods and his suggestions have created is titanic. I mean, we would not be having this conversation if this was a Baptist church being built in Red Oak. If they were going to build a subdivision around a Baptist church in Red Oak, we wouldn't be having this conversation. No way, no how. And you can say that I'm calling them racist for that. I don't care. But the fact is, people do not understand the true intentions of the people behind Epic and the people that worship there and will worship there. And people believe, like lemmings walking off a cliff, that if Greg Abbott says it, it must be so.
A lot of the Texans don't want to be proved their feelings wrong. So is that challenging as a lawyer who's trying to provide evidence and trying to like get somebody to understand the truth when people just want to be having like come together and get their emotions validated?
Sure, people want to be, they want to be right, whatever right is, right? And they don't want to be challenged. They don't want to learn. They just want to walk around thinking they're the smartest, they're right, which is human nature. But this is going to be a very difficult challenge. I mean, we can hire the best PR firms in the world. I can get in front of as many cameras, but you're fighting, ingrown is perhaps the wrong word, but you're fighting a pre-existing bias, right? And it just is. Most of us, at least in my neck of the woods, we never really gave any thought to Muslims or the Islamic community until 911. That was kind of our first introduction into, oh, good God, look at that. And you guys are too young to recall that, but you may not even been born yet. I don't know. Yeah. But that was when I was first sort of awakened as to those bad people, right? They flew the planes into the side of the World Trade Center. After that, it calmed down with me, but I still have that feelings, and people of my generation especially still have those. It doesn't take long for that scar tissue to be felt again, if that makes sense.
No, I think this is a very strong point here, because as that clip shows, it's funny as we laugh at it. One of the things the guy said in the video is, when I hear the word Muslim, I think terrorist. So a lot of people, like Dan is mentioning, since 9/11 are conditioned to feel like Muslim and terrorist are tied together. So
it's
when they hear,
I mean, when you
trigger.
hear
Not just 9/11, right?
When you hear Epic City, when you hear Muslim City, when you hear compound, Muslim compound, you think terrorist.
Every trigger you can get.
Yeah.
Well, there's
like
that.
literally
You know,
trigger after
there's
trigger.
the war we fought in Afghanistan, which was made out to be, this is like we're fighting Muslim extremists over there. So, for 2 decades we fought that. Then the same thing in Iraq as well. So America historically, I think in the past, let's say 25 years, right? It has whatever battles we have fought, whatever wars we fought internally, externally, has been religious kind of driven. So I think it and that's kind of the trigger for all Americans, particularly Texans, right? Who are very patriotic people.
very patriotic, and they're Texas.
I was born in Texas, born and raised here. My whole life, Muslims have been America's enemy. My whole life. Like, I can never go back to Afghanistan. My family can never go back to Afghanistan. The Middle East has been America's enemy this whole time. And it's like, I don't know. It feels
But
like,
despite that, I am a proud Texan. I love being Texan. I love what Texas stands for. Texas pride is a thing. Texan pride is a thing. And it's rooted, again, in conservative values, faith-based, family-oriented. And this is how we're raised. And if you really look at Islam and Muslim communities, you'll see that's really what it's about. That's why I challenge my fellow Texans, just like you guys had feelings of being lied to and being persuaded during COVID when things were happening and businesses were shut down and there was so much misinformation in the mainstream media, that possibly that was also happening around that time in 9/11, and they were trying to make you feel like there's an enemy that looks darker skin and darker hair color, and they're scary looking, and Muslim and Islam, and they kept throwing that in your face. Like, think past those layers and understand that the Muslims here, especially the Epic City Muslims, they love this community. They don't want to bother you. They want to create one by you and still be involved in the things that make Texas a beautiful place, right? They believe in the values of Texas, and they're not trying to change the law and bring anything from anywhere besides create more opportunities to be closer to their faith and to their families.
Well, I'm thinking about it. So I'm 68 years old. In penis years, I'll always be 21.
Shout out to the dogs.
But I'm 68. And the two most triggering events in my life, and that's a long time, is the JFK assassination, right? I was in the second grade when that happened, and 9/11. And in terms of the impact it has had on me internally, they're about equal, right? Even probably the JFK because I was younger, maybe a little more traumatic. But I just like that moron in Kingman. Until I tried to self-educate myself a little bit, when I heard mosque, when I heard Islamic faith, I thought Twin Towers. I mean, that's just where I went. And the idea that Abbott is pulling that trigger, and that's all he's doing is pulling the trigger. It's already there. He don't have to do or say much. That's a hair trigger, right? It is a definitional hair trigger for his political advantage is shameful.
Yeah, that's powerful. And we obviously really appreciate, that you're making it very clear, Dan, that racism and racial biases, you don't really care much for that. I mean, you have your own biases that have been caused by misinformation and these like very, eventful things that have happened in your life. Despite all that, you're on the pursuit for truth. You want truth to be shared. That's what gets to you. It's not the racial stuff. It's, hey, you're just not being honest. And that bullying is really what's bothering you.
Truth be told, my life is not going to be affected whether or not Epic City is built or not built, right? I'm not going to worship there. I'm not going to go there. My kids, my grandkids, whatever, they ain't going to live there. But the idea that our highest elected official is getting away with falsehoods, misinformation, and lies bothers me way worse. And my clients at Epic probably won't want to hear this, but it bothers me way worse than whether or not that community gets built. I mean, that's just as wrong as it gets.
But if you open your mind, right, is it not a great compliment to Texas? For example, if Epic City wants to be built somewhere else, they could always build it. There are plenty of other states that don't have perhaps this type of a hurdle that they have to go and cross, right? But these individuals want to do it in Texas because they appreciate the state of Texas. They appreciate the opportunity. They appreciate the type of environment Texans provide. And just like you said, a lot of them are Texans, if not most of them, right? They were born here. They grew up kind of they grew up and spent their entire life in Texas. So for them to want to be in Texas, I think I look at that as that's such a great compliment to the state of Texas, because if their intention was just to create this closed off community, they could do that anywhere in the country, right? There are plenty of other states that, they could go do to perhaps California and New York, right? They could go do that there and nobody would even bat an eye. In fact, it would be welcome.
Well, I did, ask my clients, guys, we're in Collin County, right? It's where the Bible Belt buckles, right there. You can see it going through the piece of leather. Yep. And to your point, they said, this is home. This has always been home to us. We're doctors. We're lawyers. We're elected officials. We have city councilmen. We have a guy running for mayor of the city of Richardson who probably won't get elected because he attends that church. They said to me, Dan, this is home. Why should we have to go someplace else? This is home, and it is their home. For God's sakes, they're as Texan as Robert Earl Keen. Like I say, he might disagree with that. Don't think he will. Don't speak for Robert. Whatever. They're Texans. They're United States citizens. They have a right to do what they want as long as it's legal. And the only people that are saying they're going to be doing illegal things is our governor.
Frustrating, super frustrating. But it's just awesome that you stand on business the way you do, and you stand on the truth, and you're not afraid of bullies. I mean, that's really like admirable, and it's awesome to have you here with us. I want to kind of go through a couple things here. Do you have any questions or anything?
No, it's just really exciting. It's really exciting to see an expert, someone who is as accomplished as you, respected, going against the bully, going against misinformation, because we need more of that. We need more of that instead of people being afraid, people avoiding the risky cases, pushing out this narrative. So it's just super exciting to see that.
And like you mentioned, I mean, you'll get burned if you're in the sun for too long, right? Because so you're not. This is not your community. It has nothing to do with you. You're as opposite as it gets in terms of where you're from and your background, but you're still representing the truth, and that's super exciting. So
in
Dan,
fact, if anything, you've been impacted negatively in your personal life through this, right?
Yeah.
So this is
first off, a reputation like mine is hard to ruin. But I don't care. I mean, I got a lovely home. I got a beautiful wife. I got great kids and a grandkid. you can't hurt me.
Dan, but you're being super humble. Didn't they make a Paramount show from
5 parts, though, but who's counting?
Yeah. A case, a show on Paramount Plus on one of the cases that you led. Yeah, that's amazing.
What was the name of the show?
It was called Waco: The Aftermath. It focused on my role in the Branch Davidian case, and Giovanni Ribisi, the actor that portrayed me, he was in Saving Private Ryan. I think he was a medic. He's kind of he's been around for a long time. So he emails me and says, I've been scripted to play you in an upcoming series. I'm a little intimidated because, A, you're the only person I've ever portrayed that's still alive. Okay. And B, you used to be such a nice looking man. Do you mind if we spend some time on Zoom or whatever? Okay. So yeah, how about tomorrow at 2:00 or whatever, and Zoom comes up, and I'm like, used to be, motherfucker, used to be. And he's like, what? I said, look at your fucking email. So I go out and watch him shoot, and which is weird to see somebody else play
you, huh?
It's very strange. It was cool as hell, but I'm like, never thought I'd see this. Yeah. So I met with the director afterwards, and he goes, what'd you think of Giovanni? I'm like, well, he was great, but he goes, but I said, he looks nothing like me.
Yeah.
He goes, Cogdell, no one knows what the fuck you look like. I'm like, ow.
Do you find yourself like kind of over analyzing, their tendencies a little bit?
So before we spent much time, the first episode, he plays much kindler, gentler, more respectful me than after we spent a few days together. You can see the metamorphosis in him. But I mean, it was cool. I didn't get anything. Man, you must have got rich off that. The only thing I got was a director's chair with my name on it that I made them give me. Right?
I mean, some things are more, they're just better than money, man. I mean, to
but
have
that's
someone,
gonna last forever. Like that's on your
It was
list.
cool,
of,
for
that's
sure.
that's on your list.
I mean,
of
after the
accomplishments,
career you have, I don't know, this might be like a negative thing to say, but I'd like to think money's not like a driving factor behind the decisions you make, at least, this stage, because you've had a very significant and prominent cases throughout your career. And I'm sure in terms of like, financial benefits, like I don't think you're worried about that.
I've made some money for sure. But I mean, just about every lawyer you drive by that's got a billboard in Dallas probably makes more money than I do.
Jim Adler, the Texas Hammer.
All those guys. They make. I mean, there are lawyers out there that are G650 rich, right? My company planes Southwest Airlines. I take Von Lane or Southwest. I mean, it's not that I'm.
Von Lane's nice though.
No, it's very nice, but you're just not going to make generational money as a criminal defense lawyer. You're going to make a nice living.
Even if you're representing like Enron and
well, you're not representing Enron. You're representing their ex folks. But no, I mean, the most money you're ever going to make as a criminal defense lawyer, for whatever it's worth, you're going to make top of your game. You're going to make $2 or $3 million a year, right? Which is good money for sure.
Yeah.
But you're not going to have a third house in Aspen and a fourth house in the wine country. You're just not. You got a nice house, great. But I don't do it for the money at this stage.
Right.
Everybody wants more money, but I want to continue to work on my craft because it's something just like a lot of professions. You can get better every day, right? It's not like you hit to the top and you're the best that you're ever going to be.
Well, what does that look like for you though? Because like when we look at your resume, it's really, it's so up there that I can't imagine, like what could you even get better at?
Everything. I mean, it's just like anything else. I you guys have read every self-help, discipline book. I just try to get better 1% every day at whatever it is I'm doing, just 1%. And I mean, like for example, throwing my arm out of socket, patting myself on the back. I quit drinking 3 years ago. I've lost 80 pounds in 3 years. I'm now, whatever it is, 14, 15% body fat as opposed to 32% body fat. I'm in the best shape of my life.
You ever tried Hot Sculpt?
What?
Hot Sculpt?
No, what is that?
Like yoga HIIT class, like
I've tried hot yoga, but I've never done a HIIT class.
yeah.
So you're predominantly doing weightlifting?
Yeah.
Nice.
I love it.
I'd like to do more HIIT class stuff because my other passion is off-road motorcycle racing, and you don't want to look like Arnold Schwarzenegger in his prime if you're racing an off-road motorcycle.
So are you actively racing motorcycles?
I'm the world's oldest teenager. You can look it up.
Wow. What do you like? Where do you race in?
Off-road stuff, hare
Okay.
scrambles, enduros, Baja 1000, that sort of stuff.
Well, very cool. Very cool.
That's about us. We're gonna get some cool graphics there. Okay, so I got some algorithmic, clip related top, questions here for you. And if you can stare at this camera when you answer, Dan, you've handled very high stress environments in these courtrooms, right? So, like you said, these self-help books and things that you can give back to men and women and people who are trying to better themselves. But what are 4 tips on dealing with stress in a high-pressure setup?
Let's see. The first is don't take yourself too seriously, right? The second is this too shall pass. I get so caught up in whatever, tragedy, case of the moment, realizing that this too, whatever it is, shall pass. Third, and I'm saying this in the order, it's probably reverse order, you got to have a connection with a spiritual power. You got to do that. And the fourth is you got to take care of yourself physically. And unless you do all those 4 things, you're never going to make it. I mean, today, for example, getting off your list, I got up at 5:30. I was at the gym at 6. This 2.5, 3 hours is the most relaxing thing I've done because I'm not answering texts, phone calls, and otherwise. I'll do 2 or 3 more of these. Then I'll meet with the Epic City people. Then I'll do more. But I do 16, 18, 20 hours a day all the time.
Wow.
And people always say, how do you do it? And I said, well, my life is like a long prison sentence. You just do the best you can.
You have any?
So it's nothing like what we see online, on Suits, where they're kind of living a luxurious life. You're
It's
just
complete bullshit.
I was going to ask
you are like a real life Harvey Specter, though.
Well, so I have
just more of a dog.
Yeah.
I have a young associate named Anthony Oso, and he's a good-looking kid. We call him Teaser Pony. You don't know what a teaser pony is? Okay, so when they put the old stud out to mare to be a stud, he's old. He's been around. He's won a few races, but he's not the good-looking stud he used to be. So when they bring the fillies in for the stud to do his work, they bring in what's called a teaser pony, and the teaser pony gets the fillies all excited. He gets off the right scent, and so he gets them worked up for the stud. So Anthony also, aka Teaser Pony, he was with me. He was with the DA's office, and he was with me like 3 weeks before we hit Paxton, the impeachment trial. And we roll in, and there's cameras, there's lights, there's actions. Chicks are DMing him. He's a good-looking kid. Women are driving in from Houston, from Dallas, from wherever. It's like, where was this shit when I was 24 years old? And I told him, I said, dude, don't get used to this because this is not the way it goes. Yeah. And we went from all that glitz and glory to we got our Paxton verdict on Saturday. We drove to Dallas on Sunday and started a 2.5-month trial where we're working 20 hours a day. I'm like, this is the real world, Hoss. This is what it's like.
No, I love that. I mean, I have a clip here too as well that I want to just play in his.
I appreciate you saying like this is the most relaxed you've been because whenever we found any footage of you, you're pretty intense in the courtroom. It's
well, my wife says, and she's right about this. For the record, Robin, you're right about everything. So. When I go into a courtroom, I become a different person. And people say, dude, where's that funny off-the-cuff guy? There's a switch that's flipped. There just is. And I'm not always passionate, outgoing, and obnoxious, but it's an intense deal, right? And I'm not smart. I'm not particularly gifted. I work hard. And whatever success I have, I attribute to 2 things, my mentor and hard work, right? Because I ain't a friggin' genius by no stretch of the imagination.
I love that.
I think it's a matter of perspective. I think we're 3 guys in their late 20s, early 30s. I mean, definitely, I think from our perspective, we look at you as somebody who's very accomplished, somebody who's gone through a lot of who's taken on a lot of challenges in your life. And, I think all of us definitely expect us to do better and think we can always improve. But at least from our perspective, when we kind of were thinking about talking to you, like, how do we even have a conversation with like somebody who's so accomplished, right? Like what credibility do we have to even have a conversation with you? So like just having you be here and kind of having a casual conversation with us.
You got to ask me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It ain't hard. That's exactly kind of like what we did, right? And that's how we came across this. But you want to
I was going to play this clip, but another kind of more focus on you and your background. What is your biggest regret in your career?
You know, probably not considering other types of law, probably not considering doing PI work or just staying, you know, in a monochromatic pursuit of criminal cases the whole time, just because of the economics, right? You can make 10 times in a year what I can make in a generation. So I wish I'd have been more open-minded to considering trying other types of cases other than criminal stuff. But look, if somebody would have asked me in law school, hey, at 68 years old, if you would accomplish X, Y, and Z, and you're in this place economically, would you consider that a win? I'd have been like, fucking A, man. So I'm grateful for sure.
So knowing what you know today, if you could go back in time and practice a different type of law, what would that be?
PI. That's where the money is, personal injury law.
Interesting.
Right?
Okay.
And a lot of those guys.
So you're like battling insurance most of the time, right?
A lot of those guys are just marketers, right? They couldn't try a case if their life depended on it. They're just buying billboards. And I mean, it's no secret. A lot of these guys, they buy billboards, they buy ads or whatever. And if they get a real case, then they refer to a lawyer that can actually go try a case. But there are some brilliant PI lawyers, Arnold and Itkin and others in Houston. Not only are they really good marketers, I mean, those guys spend $1 million a month on Facebook ads. $1 million a month on Facebook ads. But they're great lawyers, right? And some of the other type billboard type, they wouldn't know a deposition if it bit them in the ass, right? They're just out there whoring themselves out, and there's
taking the first settlement that comes their way.
Well, what they're doing is you know, just taking money from banks and buying the billboards, and if there's a good case, give it to this guy, and they'll take a 30% referral fee or whatever it is, and it's a shame. They're not lawyers; they're just marketing. And I don't want to do that.
So I want to play this clip. It's pretty short, but I thought it was pretty powerful, and I want to kind of hear further thoughts. So this is you on the Dirty Verdict podcast, I believe, about a year ago.
You know, I want to say life-changing, and then I hesitate, but no, it really was life-changing to be a part of that. Because every now and then, doing what we do or doing what I do, you know, look, I've got a good lifestyle, I have a beautiful wife, I've got great kids, blah, blah, blah. But it's a hard fucking gig, right? I mean, you're representing people that a lot of times you don't want anything to do with. The judges are bad, the jury hates you. It's a grind. I mean, and especially if you're doing it right, because you got to give. I'm not that talented of a guy. The only way I get success or find success is to work my ass off. I mean, I'm 67 years old, and I do 60, 70 hours a week, every week. If I hear quality of life in a job interview with a candidate, they're dying to eat.
And my comment, what I want to say to you is, you know, as head of recruiting, working and you really talking to hundreds of thousands of people about their work-life balance and the things that they value in today's world. Hearing somebody who's 40 plus years in their career, you know, share that, you know, they're willing to put in that kind of work, they're willing to put those kind of hours. What motivates you right now to continue doing what you're doing and put this type of effort forward?
Fear of failure, right? I mean, if I don't work that hard, I'm not going to do my client the best job. And what I said there is absolutely true. And look, the younger generation, to speak in generalities, I'm not saying y'all have it wrong with a work-life balance. But it's different than when I grew up. My son, who I love more than life itself, I never thought I could love something more than me till I had a kid. You know, he's all about work-life balance. He gets to work from home, and I just, dude, you're not going to get promoted. Dad, it's everybody. No, the guy that offices in the cubicle next to your boss and goes to lunch with your boss, that guy's going to get the promotion, son, not you. No, it's different. No, it ain't. No, it ain't. No, it ain't. So I don't know who's officer next to him, but think about that. But my point is,
shout out to me.
there is, if you're doing at least my job, it doesn't stop at 6 o'clock. It doesn't stop at 5 o'clock. It stops at 10:30 or 11. On a good night, I'll get 4 hours of sleep. Right? That's why I look like this. It's a grind, and there are people that breeze through it. And I always say, the easiest job in the world is to be a criminal defense lawyer. You roll in, dude, you're guilty as hell. You need to plead. Are you kidding? You're going to go to prison for 50 years. I can get you 10 years right now. Let's plead. The hardest job in the world is to be a really good criminal defense lawyer when you go against the officer, when you go against the prosecutor, when you go against the judge, when you go against the jury. People, this idea that defendants are presumed innocent, bullshit. Not one time have I ever picked a jury and everybody goes, "Oh man, what's your guy doing here? They got to be innocent." That's not the way it goes. Yeah. Presumption of innocence, my ass. We got to prove it beyond a reasonable doubt. No, they don't have to. They've already proven it beyond a reasonable doubt when they walk in the door or the jury hears aggravated sexual assault of a child. You think they got to prove that?
Wow.
They got to put an outcry witness that said, "Well, yeah, she complained to me that it happened." That'll get it to a jury every time. So, my wandering response is, if you're doing what I do, I don't care how talented you are, it's a lot of work.
So how do you, I know one of the things you mentioned about like tips you wanted to give was kind of taking care of yourself physically. I know you mentioned, kind of wake up, you get a workout in, especially when you're working 60, 70 hours a week, for sure. I can say for me, Tamem's probably the one out of the three of us who consistently does that. I don't know how he does that. He's, 60, 70 hours a week, like he puts in consistently. I think we go through phases where, maybe during like busy season or something, we'll put in those type of hours. But how do you take care of yourself physical other than like, just the gym?
Well, let's keep in mind what I said at the beginning of this. I made a 2.4 at UT. When UT, if you could get a fishing license, I'm not a smart guy, so it's going to take me longer than it takes a lot of people. But quitting drinking was a huge positive event in my life. I would like to say it never negatively impacted my practice. That's probably wrong just because of the number of drinks. Tito still calls me and wonders what happened. I did not know until 3 years ago you could drink Red Bull without vodka. I did not know that. That's completely new information for me.
That's the only way that people at Epic drink Red Bull, actually.
What a great, let's get a Quaalude and methamphetamine in the same drink. What a good idea. But you don't drink, and I can't manage alcohol. I can't manage a lot of things. I'm either all in or I'm not in at all. So quitting alcohol, eating right, working out, meditating, having a relationship with a higher power. I don't care what that higher power is. Mine is not where it needs to be. But I think you have to do all of those things to maintain your sanity and not to not go crazy.
What's a lesson that you've learned through your experience of being a lawyer that the average person can take away and implement in their life?
There's a lot of good and there's a lot of bad in everybody. I mean, there's not a single person out there that's all good. There's not a single person out there that's all bad. And the idea that law enforcement is always right is complete bullshit. The idea that life is fair is complete bullshit. The idea that money is not a significant driver in the justice system and fairness in the justice system is complete bullshit.
That was awesome. That was awesome. Well, Dan, again, it's an absolute pleasure to have you on. We really appreciate you, in the midst of all the things you have going on, sharing, your time with us. In this camera, to close us off, if there's anything that you would want to, any promotion of anything that you have, whether it's your law practice, your website, social media, whatever it is, go ahead and share that.
Also include maybe where viewers can follow with this case and it's sort of the best way to follow along.
I mean, you can go to my website, which is, www.cogdell-law.com. You can call the office 713-426-2244. Frankly, I need help on my social media, so I need to talk to experts.
That's what we're here for, baby.
Yeah, we got you.
But it's an honor to be here. So you guys are a cool crew, and I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, we appreciate just maybe as context of how we even came across. Just like you said, to send a message, right? I think Tamiem and Aaron were talking, and Aaron's definitely he's like, all right, I'm just gonna reach out, and how cool of it, of you to respond back and kind of have a conversation, willing to have a conversation with us.
Listen, Tamiem put it on my radar that you were representing Epic. We actually have other guests that are also involved in the community as well that we haven't rolled out the footage of yet. But I will say, guys, I reached out emailed the Dan Cogdell team, and they swiftly responded, and they are very organized. They're very on top of communication,
Don't
which
say that. They want to raise.
and that is
They
so
were horrible.
important.
They need to do a better job.
If you're looking for
Whatever.
representation, if you're looking for some, communication is the first sign of the type of partnership that you're going to be getting involved with. And the fact that they were so swift with their communication tells me everything in the line of work that I'm in. So I have nothing but good things to say, and super excited to have this podcast exist. But Sujan, you could close us out.
So that wraps up episode 12 of our podcast. We'll include Dan's website and any of the social media in our video. Please follow along. I think this will be really interesting, something that we'll all be involved in the years to come. Hopefully it doesn't take that long, but probably the way it is going, it will. But episode 12, thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys on the next one. See ya.